the sun. But it would be too late when morning comes. Such a mess inside my head today. Wish the people would go away. Nothing very alone. Nothing very alone. Sometimes I feel it so hard that I can bury myself. That I can bury myself. Such a mess inside my head today. Wish the people would go away. I was looking around for a distraction. You just happened to me, I was attracted. Such a mess inside my head today. Wish the people would go away. That I could bury myself. That I could bury myself. Such a mess inside my head today. Wish the people would go away. I coded a message for the sun. Thought it would be too late when morning comes. Such a mess inside my head today. Wish the people would go away.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Mindy and Marie.
Hey.
Hello. And thanks to everyone who's joining us today as well for the digital launch of Submerged. Just before we begin, I'd like to make an acknowledgement that I am joining you virtually from the lands of the Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri people of the East Kulin Nations. And I want to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which I live and work. I also would like to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded and that I am an uninvited guest in this space.
I would also like to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging of the lands on which I work, Zoom from, and just live on. Yoda people. And yeah, pass that down to Mimi.
I also like to acknowledge the Yoda people as the traditional owners of the land on which I live and work. And I pay respect to the elders past, present, and emerging.
Great. Well, so today we're here to basically launch the new online exhibition, Submerged, which is a collaborative exhibition featuring new digital artworks by Mimi and Ree, who are here with us tonight. So basically the format of this launch will be that both artists will share a little bit about their work. They will also do some readings that of text that they wrote that accompany the illustrations and the artworks. At the end, we will all come back together as three of us and have a dialogue and conversation, kind of responding to the themes of the exhibition. If you're wondering who I am and why I'm here, I'm Sophia. I was very honored and privileged to work with both Mimi and Ree as a writing mentor on this project. So I'm here today just to facilitate the conversation and to support Mimi and Ree. Also, I just want to flag, we have done a tech check on all of our ends and everything seems to be going well, touch wood. But I do ask for your understanding and patience in case we do run into any kind of tech issues. And hopefully there won't be any, but it is the new normal, doing digital events. So I'm sure, everyone can appreciate that. Great, so we'll get started with Ree. So I just want to introduce Ree for those of you who are joining us who might not be familiar with her or her practice. So Ree is a 19-year-old Fijian Croatian artist living and working on the traditional lands of the Yorta people. Born in Australia, Ree grew up in Uganda before moving back to Shepparton in late 2014. Ree works across various mediums, including visual art, performance, songwriting, and music production. She has created a series of drawings of Black and brown female bodies that celebrate the natural body in all its form, color, and sizes for Submerged. In doing so, Ree wants to express the importance of women of color being understood and respected in their own nature. So thank you, Ree.
Thank you, Mimi. So I think we'll move to the readings of the artworks now. So this first piece is called Not My Trauma, and it goes, if I trip, she trips. My weakness spreads like a disease for her, her mother, and her grandmother. Because I shouldn't be crying, but I do. Because I'm not loud when they tell me to hush. Because my brown legs run fast, but I can't get away. You're so strong. Oh, but you're emotional? Then I'm your token angry Black woman. I'm not my trauma, but I'm allowed to feel. And now I'm allowing myself to heal. And this next piece, this is called Her. There's a lingering attitude that women of color need to have long, flowing or styled hair and makeup that mirrors your eccentric features to be considered beautiful. Our natural features are often classed as eccentric, placed in a category outside of what is normal, that dehumanizes the beauty of Black and brown women. This piece represents a large number of the women around me in my homes, my schools, and my community. A glance at beauty that is all around me. This next one is called Pieces. This is a piece of a bigger image that I'm trying to fall in love with. As a tall, brown, thicker woman, I often find myself comparing myself with skinny women and wondering why I feel like I'm the only one with fat around my back like this. I know I'm not the only one, but this image captures a piece of a puzzle that I'm constantly trying to put together. This one is called Amina, translating to Amen in Luganda. This piece represents a message for me. Why do I not believe I'm good enough to receive what is promised to me? Amen. Let it be. I am a product of love. Why do I fail to love most things about myself? The things I need are here. The things I want are near. Belief is the first step forward. This one is called All of Me. I find that there is minimal representation of people of color who live with vitiligo in our media and entertainment industries. A number of Black, Indigenous, people of color in my community live with this condition, and I've been sharing conversations with friends about their experiences. From these conversations, they describe certain struggles, such as having to constantly prove their blackness due to having patches of white skin. There's also a discussion about individual progress over time to becoming confident enough to talk about this and show it off proudly. To me, viewing this from an outside perspective, I wanted to highlight the strength and beauty of people who live with this condition. The image represents connection, love, understanding, strength, hope, and support. And this one is called Stories. Perky breasts, slim bodies, perfect toned skin, no irregular color patches, no wrinkles, and especially no stretch marks. These are all standards that Western society uphold and expect women of color to meet. Our beauty is art and nothing to hide. This one is called Amani, which translates to power from Luganda. And it simply says, I call her Amani. And this last one is very special to me. It's called Secrets. I am she. I'm still powerful. I'm still the brown girl with the voice and the long legs. I'm still the brown girl with the marks and the scars on my body that I refuse to hide. I'm still the brown girl with the puffy hair, the do-rags, the queen attitude, and the tattoos. I'm still the brown girl with the loud voice and the natural curves. I'm still powerful. I'm still beautiful. I am she. I am. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Ree. Such a powerful body of work, and hearing you read it in particular, I think,
Thank you.
such strong resonance. So thank you for sharing that with us. So what's the main inspiration behind this body of work that you made for Submerged?
So it first came from a conversation that was started actually in a restaurant with a good friend of mine. And we were kind of talking about representation of Black and brown women and their bodies and how it's represented through media. And I kind of was thinking about it, and then it came at a time when movements like Black Lives Matter was being flushed through media and constantly put out on platforms for everyone to see. And it was kind of like a misrepresentation of the people that I see around me. And so I was like, for me, it was really important to touch on it and to really put an image out there of beauty that I see that isn't coming through media, but it's more the naturalness that I see. And whatever was coming through the media was a misrepresentation of the women around me, and it was harmful and it was inaccurate of I guess Black and brown women. And yeah, I really wanted to focus in on what it's really like and the experiences that these women have. And yeah.
But also your experience too, right? Like from a personal place.
Yeah. So those come from, moving overseas, from moving into Western countries, Australia, and having to assimilate and adjust to the way that these societies kind of judge what beauty was. And the images came from my experiences as a woman of color and what it was like to adjust, having to learn to love myself and stuff like that. And then having conversations with other women and seeing what it was like for them to adjust to a society like this as well, where maybe what they have as natural beauty may not be deemed as a beauty in its full sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Those kind of expectations of beauty, but whose standard using. Yeah. So you kind of mentioned a little bit already, I guess about the context or the time that you worked on the show, but I guess I'm interested in, this has been a project that has been in development for you for a while, and our launch, which was meant to be end of last year, has been pushed up now. So how do you feel like that passage of time has maybe changed or like furthered the development of your work?
I think a lot of factors have influenced and changed what I originally wanted to put out. What I originally put out was kind of more focused just on my experiences with my body and my living in this country. But then I thought that, because of things like Black Lives Matter, I really wanted to include a variety of images that all women of color could relate to, or a bigger group of women of color could relate to. And I yeah, that was the main thing that influenced me. And the time period from starting until now, it also changed with the way that I think I was maturing over the time, because it's been a year. And I was kind of thinking about yeah, like how that year period had affected me and my friends, my aunties, my grandmothers, like, and all that kind of stuff. But it was mainly that period of when Black Lives Matter was just flushing all the media and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, those issues are always there, but the kind of concentration of visibility or attention from the media and responding to that. Yeah. So I feel like we've touched on a lot of really great stuff, and I want to pick those threads up back again at the end when we bring Mimi into the conversation. But thank you so much, Ree. It's a really incredible and powerful body of work, and you should feel very proud of yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. So we'll now invite Mimi to share about her work. I'll just wait for her to pop on screen. Hi, Mimi.
Hey, I'm back.
Hi. So I'll just briefly introduce Mimi for those of you who are new to Mimi and her work. So Mimi was born in Hong Kong, grew up in England, and now lives in regional Australia. Her work explores identity, belonging, and uses art to understand and transcend the mundanity of everyday life. Her body of work for Submerged is about growing up as a yellow woman and coming to terms with her lived experience that has been constantly denied or rejected within a predominantly white context. So a central theme that you'll see in this body of work is motherhood, and the way that her thinking has also shifted through seeing her own children move through similar spaces. So over to you, Mimi.
Thanks, Sophia. When my first child was born, I gained a superpower. I felt myself splitting as I nursed her through the night. Pressure from the past and the future pushed in on me, squeezed the breath from my lungs and blood from my veins, until I broke into tiny pieces, drifting apart from one another. Some formed clumps of anxiety, some became dense black balls of pain. Others grew into fluffy clouds of laughter and joy. They observed each other as they dissipated into space. A new superpower emerged, abrupt bursts of uncontrollable time travel. Leung Yan. When my parents enrolled me at the local playgroup in a tiny village in Hampshire, UK, someone there must have told them I needed to get an English name. They chose Mimi because that's how I refer to myself after we immigrated. I spoke about myself in a third person. Mimi wants this. Mimi fell over. Mimi doesn't like that, even when speaking in Cantonese. I was just beginning to learn English as a 2.5-year-old, so maybe I was a little confused. Looking back, I see it as a sign that I was separating into two halves, English and Chinese. The English side was developing and growing strong, demanding to be named, and so I named it. The Chinese side watched on with diminishing power, slowly accepting this new being with whom it had to share a brain and a body. I used to hate the yum-yum, yin-yang symbol because of its dumb-sounding anglicized name. At school, kids would laugh in my face and chant it at me because they thought it sounded like my Chinese name. It doesn't. In Cantonese, it's completely different. Ling Yan. Even Romanized, it sounds different enough. Ling Yan. But, you know, kids will be kids and words can never hurt me. What it did do, though, was give Mimi approval to seize more power, encouraging it to push Ling Yan back. It became more confident now in its belief that Ling Yan must be hidden to avoid further embarrassment and shame. Recipe for brief brisket noodle soup. Some notes. 1. I've been called an animal affectionately for eating beef tendons, but I once had dinner with a girl from Hong Kong in London's Chinatown where she proudly slurped a massive bowl of tendon-only broth noodles, and I thought, fuck yeah, that's the kind of Chinese I want to be. My dad used to take us to a Tai Pai Dong, street food stall, under a bridge near our house when we visited Hong Kong. We went in our pajamas on nights when we were all suffering from jet lag. My dad and brother always insisted that the beef brisket broth with hor fun, flat rice noodles, was the best combo, but I preferred the mei fun, the thin rice noodles. On rare occasions, we all agreed on the mean egg noodles. We paired our noodles with sweet soy milk sucked through a soft straw from a worn glass Fanta or Coke bottle. If you have the time and energy, it's well worth making your own noodles. 3. I always felt that bak choy, literally meaning white vegetable, is for kids, and at some point you graduate to choy sum, which is often called Chinese broccoli, maybe because it's kind of bitter. 4. If you're my dad, you'd also add 3 heaped teaspoons of chili oil to your noodles. Not the sauce though, never the sauce. Peanuts and carrots. At school, I won the coveted form prize, awarded to the student with the highest exam scores from age 9 to 13. I pictured stuffy classrooms packed with distressed white parents sitting awkwardly at their children's graffitied desks, complaining about how unfair it was for someone to win so many years in a row. It's just not right, they cried at the PTA meetings my parents never attended. Stop the chinks, they whispered to the headmaster in phone calls my parents never thought to make. They can't just come here and take all our prizes, they joked at social events my parents were never invited to. The examination prize was introduced when I was 14. This would be the new award for getting the highest exam scores, replacing the prestigious form prize, which would now be reserved for the student who had performed best overall that year. The student who, according to an undisclosed criteria of merit, had been most deserving. My parents didn't really care about this. A prize was still a prize in their eyes, but I cared. They downgraded my prize. They downgraded me. They were telling me, you just test well, nothing more. And you'll never deserve anything more than what we allow. Peanuts for donkeys, carrots for donkeys. I stopped giving a shit then. It was clear. Fuck them. I'll do what I want. Be disruptive, whatever. It didn't matter what I did during the school year anymore. Only at exam time. Only when correct and incorrect was undeniably black and white. Inarguable, objective fact. I made sure I got that examination prize every year until I finally graduated. I resisted being ashamed of it. Fuck you, I'd say, as I received my prize in my head because I was too afraid to say it out loud. Recipe for traditional Chinese wonton soup. When I'm making Chinese food, sometimes I hear Jamie Oliver in my head talking me through the steps. Grab some yellow dumpling wraps. In Chinese, we call them pei, which means skin. The big ones with egg in them. They're usually square shaped, yeah? I know you can get them at Woolies, but I'm not sure about Coles. Or was it the other way around? Never mind. Get some meat, any kind will do. Chop it up. A big mug of oil and chuck in some Chinese herbs, garlic, ginger, soy sauce, and sesame oil to get that beautiful aromatic Asian flavor. Bung it all into the wrap, flap it over the meat. Then seal it by pressing the edges together with some water. Boil them in a brothy, piss-weak soup until they float to the top and Bob's your uncle. Traditional Chinese wonton soup. Sometimes I get so lost in talking to myself like that and doing the lugs of oil and chucking this and that in like a scrappy but lovable Londoner, I'm not so sure I'm doing an impression anymore. As I sat and nursed my second child, 2.5 years after the birth of my first, I had become familiar with the spontaneous splintering of self. I travelled great expanses of time and space whilst rooted to my well-worn armchair. I went back to my own childhood, examining each interaction and estimating its effect on my life. Then, catapulted into the future, I cried from fear and anxiety, and back again to the present. I wished for my children to have bodies and souls entwined and light as feathers to take them soaring into the sky.
Thank you so much, Mimi. It was so good to hear you read them with the images, and I know you put a lot of care into how the text accompanied the works. So, and I also know that you didn't actually read everything that you wrote for this exhibition. So I encourage everyone to look at Submerged on the MAV website to see all the work that both Mimi and Ree have put into it. I guess I want us to start with the same questions that I asked Ree, and then we'll kind of go into our discussion format. So I'm interested to hear, what is the main inspiration behind this body of work? I know you're tackling a lot of different themes at once, but if you could kind of maybe have a think about that.
I saw it as a really good opportunity to examine how racism has affected me, on a really personal level, on like a subconscious level, especially since I was had become really aware of my behavior and response to things in relation to the birth of my daughter. Actually, shortly after my first daughter was born, I had like a racist incident with my neighbor, which kind of still shakes me. So I just thought this exhibition was a really good opportunity for me to examine, how growing up as a Chinese person in a Western society has shaped me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that theme of motherhood, and that reflection that I guess seeing what you experience then being experienced by your children is such a powerful kind of, I guess, ground from which you're making these works, right? Because the audience, or I guess the intended audience, is not just you then, it's about what your children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, you kind of like seeing, like, it's like seeing yourself, like, and how you look different to everyone, or like, I've noticed how like my kids, they look really Chinese or Asian, and that just reminds me, oh, that must have been how it was like for me when I was the only Asian kid in a very white school, and just those thoughts and feelings that it kind of brings up, and that opens the door to all the sorts of subconscious self-beliefs and prejudices that build up over your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's such a powerful body work, but also so vulnerable as well, I guess, in sharing some of those experiences. And so thank you for like your sincerity and your strength and sharing that with us. The same question I asked Ree as well is about the development of this project. I know that we have been in conversation since, I don't even know when, last year. It feels like a long time ago. We have had a lot of dialogue about your writing for the show and so forth. So it's been like a extended period of time, I guess. So how do you think your project might have, like, with the way it's ended up now or resolved, how do you think it changed or developed since, you first kind of initially thought of it?
Well, I at the beginning, I didn't think that I would have the chance to work with you. I tend to develop writing as well, which is always something I've been really keen to do. But so initially I was like, I would just present images and work the text into them. But I also had a bunch of these notes that I'd written and like brain dumps, and so it was great to be able to intertwine the writing with the images and tell a more complete story, a more complex story. And also I retouched on Black Lives Matter, and for me that whole movement just kind of gave me some encouragement, or like taught me that there is value in sharing stories and difficulties and struggles of being a woman of color, and that it is important to talk about these things, or at least express them, so that maybe other people can identify with that and not feel so alone with it. But yeah, for me, more specifically, it was the anti-Asian racism and the stuff that I'd hear in the news and the media that made me feel really self-conscious or a bit down, and it was more like self-reflection and going like, hang on, it isn't just when an incident happens that I'm affected. It's actually layers and layers of this kind of dust that you're covered with. And so I was able to, I guess, direct the work more towards that as the area that I was interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember us talking about that kind of how the response to racism, it's never just what's happening or happened to you in that moment. It's actually bringing up all of the past experiences as well.
Yeah.
And last year, suddenly there was a lot of trauma, that all of us went through collectively with the pandemic, but then also with Black Lives Matter and the social justice movements that kind of brought up into a kind of visibility. So I think this is a good time to bring Ree back into the conversation. Hello, Ree. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you again to both of you for sharing your work with us. So I guess I want to kind of ask some questions now that hopefully both of you can answer to, and it would also just be really good to have, I guess, a more natural conversation flow between us. So one thing I did note in both of your works is that there's a very strong presence of the body, whether that be your own body or someone else's body that you're representing. So I guess I want to know, what is the significance of the body, in your work, and why have you centered it in such a way through both your writing and your art as well?
I think that my main thing is like, when you're talking about like the physical body, like this is a thing that we have. It's what makes us us, and it confuses me so much as to why people hate on it so much. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's very common for someone to be like, why do I like this about myself, or I don't like this about that person, and like there's always something to pick on about everybody that you see. And I thought it was really important, especially with like I said, women of color being in a society like this where natural beauty is not deemed as the most beautiful thing that could be. It's like, it's more easier to pick at and more easier to say, look, like, this is what we don't like and we're going to tell you about it, kind of thing. So I thought it was really important to have this platform to allow the experiences of these other women to be told and shown, that something that might have been picked out to say, like, this is not what we like in this society, but to show that this is actually beautiful and that there is beauty in that, and that like, it's nothing to hide. Yeah,
and I think that comes across really strongly in your work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mimi, did you have anything to add about, I guess, the importance of the body in your work?
I guess one of the images that I have on there is like the big two characters kind of struggling that both represent me, and it's like, I guess, same with everyone. You got a body that faces the world, but then there's like the part of you that your spirit or your soul or whatever, and so it's always a struggle to be recognized for who you are, like on the inside, but when you look significantly different physically, there are lots of like projected meanings and ideas about who you are based on things that aren't within your control. And I just feel it's really important to be allowed space to define that for yourself and provide space for multiple representations of lots of different kinds of bodies and races and stuff like that. Yeah,
because self-representation is really important, right? So it's also about like who has the power or is in charge of putting out this particular depiction of the body into the world. So yeah, and both of your works are also quite personal, and especially hearing you do the readings that you did tonight, sharing personal stories and experiences as well. So how do you approach, I guess, the personal in your work, and why do you think this is something that's really important?
Well, I'll go first. I think, like, I don't really know how else to do it. Like, it's in my, that's the way I approach my work. Like, a lot of my work starts from drawing, especially when I'm doing this kind of more art side of my practice. And it starts from like memory, feeling, personal experiences and observations, and that it just naturally comes out in this way. But especially for this work, I just realized that I had so much personal experiences that I needed to get out, that I needed to tell the story of. And it's only just like reading it now, I thought, oh, it is quite personal, and it is like really, but that's just what happened. Like that's what came out, and that's what felt like the thing that needed to be said, the thing that I needed to say.
Yeah. What about for you, Ree?
I feel like the level of, I guess, personalness to me in the works, it kind of, I feel like it limits a little bit because I put other people's experiences in there, but that came in with the whole, wanting to have a platform where people could relate to it. So it wasn't just about me, but it was also that I did find that in the conversations that I was having, that what I had, I guess, issues with is what a lot of other people could relate to as well, and say like, we've had the same experiences, we've had this and this, but yeah, like I wanted to use the platform to have like a diverse range of artworks that all different women of color could relate to, because maybe someone from another culture, to me, might have had, something that they've experienced that may not have been represented before, and I really wanted that to come through in the art. But the reason that I also put my own personal stuff in there is because, someone may look at it and be like, yeah, like I can relate to that as well.
Yeah. Mimi, do you feel that same? That like by sharing the personal, perhaps someone else out there can relate to the stories that you're sharing?
Yeah, I think so. But also, like, there's this. I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't like. I always struggle to, like make a point, like a political point or like a cultural point. I feel like concrete about it. Like the only thing I really know is that this is like my own personal stuff. And yeah, and it just feels for me like more powerful, more true than doing something that's slightly less personal when I'm talking about these kind of topics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I might move on to the next question. Working with the two of you has been really interesting because we actually have not met in person at all yet. So we've been working on this project together over months, but have really been geographically isolated, not just due to lockdown, but also due to location. And I guess one of the things about this, the reason that I guess the two of you are working together is that you are both based in Shepparton. And I guess I'm interested to think about place and, what does it mean for you to, like, what does living regionally mean to you? And does that actually impact on the way that you make your work or the way you think about your work, or does it not? So I guess I'm interested to hear you talk about place a bit.
I think living regionally, I guess, has a minimal effect on the way that I go about my process of creating art. But what I do find is that experiences may differ because there's a very big difference in the way people of color are treated in regional areas and metropolitan. And it's, I think, I don't really know why that is, but yeah, like I find that, like, let's say if I was to do another exhibition based off of experiences of other people, I would probably have much different set of artworks for people who experience these things in a regional area rather than metropolitan. But I guess that would be the only factor that kind of influences the way I would go about making something. But all in all, I guess I just would, keep representing just majority of the community of people of color. But yeah, I think that regional and living out in the country is a minimal effect on me, I guess.
Yeah. What about for you, Mimi? Thinking about place or where you're based now, or even like perhaps where you've lived before? How do those differ? Yeah.
I'm always thinking about, like, I moved to Shepparton about 5-6 years ago from Melbourne, and that was like after a long journey of living here and there. So I spent a bit of time in London, spent a bit of time in Hong Kong, spent a bit of time on a remote community near Alice Springs, and then just kind of long winding road to Shepparton. So I definitely miss like the exciting, like exciting life of big city, and you could just walk out the door and there's tons of stuff, like, and you could just walk down the street and see lots of different new things. But there's also a bit hectic. So like living out regionally in Shepparton has been like really good for me to be so heavily influenced by outside things, and to be able to have mental space as well as physical to just go my own way, and like not to be able to focus on finding my true voice.
Yeah, well, I hope that in the future, the three of us can have a chance to occupy the same physical space and meet. It has definitely been an interesting experience working on this completely, via distance, and thinking about, I guess, the geographical distance between us. So I think this is a good segue into a question about collaboration. We've had a few meetings where we share, where the two of you shared your writing with each other and shared your works. And there was a lot of dialogue and feedback and so forth that has been really central to this project, Submerged. So what has the process of working together collaboratively been like for you? And do you think you gained something from kind of learning about each other's works as well?
Yeah, definitely. I've gained, I guess, I've had the chance to sit down and learn from two new people that I've never met before, but also hear the experiences that I guess especially Mimi that you've had, and it's really been like an honor that I was able to hear them and hear what you had to say about certain things, because it also I guess taught me a lot of things that I wouldn't have been thinking about before. But it's also been a funny process because, like you said, we've never met before. And actually, I think I saw Mimi at the shop the other day, but I kind of was just keep walking. I don't know if it's
that side of me.
Yeah, exactly. And I couldn't tell. I was like, oh, I don't want to embarrass myself just in case. But so that's probably the I guess the only thing I would change is being able to like meet you guys in person, because that would have been, I guess, like our creative process would have been so much different if we were able to sit down at a table, and that would have been like a great honor as well. But I'm really grateful to be able to have been talking to you guys for the last few months and year with Mimi. But
same. It's been awesome. Because when Anita from Mav phoned me, I was like, oh, there's like this young artist who does music, and like, do you want to do some, I don't know, like do an exhibition together? I was like, oh, okay. And then like we had that first initial conversation, and it felt like even though we're coming from quite different backgrounds, it was like there was lots of stuff that like you talked about that I was like, like that totally fits what I've experienced. And it was also having those writing sessions with you and Sophia was so good. Like I learned so much, and that way of, I hadn't really thought about collaboration in that way before, where it was more like testing ideas out and giving feedback, as opposed to like working on some like a work together as a whole. And so initially I was really a bit nervous about sharing the works with the both of you, but like you were both super generous, and it felt like a really good respectful space to talk about quite difficult things. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, because I know that I came into the process a bit later, when it was just about, I guess, developing the writing, and I guess this might be a good time for us to think a little bit about your writing that you made for this exhibition and how it sits alongside, or is the work as well. So like, I guess, how important was that process for you of kind of putting words to paper, so to speak, and why did you both want to have writing as part of this project?
I think it was like suggested to us because for my artworks, I didn't have any writing accompanying the pieces at all. But I thought that, after it was suggested that maybe we could have like a little caption on the side, I thought that it would be a really good idea to have, I guess, it's like art in its own sense, because it wasn't just like a caption that says, here is this painting with this, and it was like its own art in its own sense, because also as a musician, I liked to take lyrics from things that I had written and attached it to paintings that I had created, so that it was almost like a visual for what I was trying to get across.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking about it, it was important that they weren't just captions, for illustrations, that they held their own and also added a different kind of layer of interpretation as well.
Yeah, I guess that is another thing, is like I kind of wanted to guide the interpretation that a viewer may have, so that they don't just look at it and completely be on the other side of the road, is what I was trying to get across. And yeah, like I guess I hoped that it influenced in the right way that I had wanted people to go when they saw the artworks.
Yeah, and when people look at the exhibition online, they'll see both the text and the artwork as intended. And I think, hearing you read it as well gives that extra layer. What about for you, Mimi? What has the process of writing for this project been like for you, and why was it important for you?
I started off for this project with just a bunch of notes and ramblings and incoherent words and lists, which I sent a lot of them to you. Initially I was like, oh, no, I'll just send it and see what happens. And then I've always written, and I've always had a little diary, and just to rant and write whatever. And so it was quite interesting to draw that process of just like a brain dump, word vomit, form, and pull out like actual a structure from it, and then be able to put it with my artwork in like quite a really cool way. Like at the beginning, I thought, oh no, we got to do writing, and it's going to be like, this picture is about, that's just like the kind of like what Ree said, like that's just the kind of like thing that I thought that would happen. So when Ree was like, oh, I could do some of my lyrics or some of my poetry, that's when I thought, oh yeah, I could do like anything, like it's online, it could be like all sorts. And so it was really fun to do, because in the exhibition, in my work, I've got like those personal passages that I've written, some like traditional Chinese poems, and then my personal memory of those, and there's the recipe and just a long list. So there's lots of different forms of writing in there. And it's just really, but it still kind of makes a coherent whole. And that was really useful for you to like gently nudge me to say, you can't like have everything you want to put in there.
Well, I mean, for me, the process of editing is always thinking about what is it that you want to say and what's the best way of saying it. And I remember our conversations because, you had a lot of content, and it was really about finessing that. And I think you should feel really proud both of you should feel really proud about what you ended up with. And for anyone who is joining us now for the launch, I really would encourage you to, see this exhibition on the MAV website and really read the writing that Ree and Mimi have both worked really hard on, because I think it just adds so much value to the exhibition as a whole. I'm just conscious of time. So before we move on to questions and comments from the audience, I just wanted to I always like to end any kind of conversation with just like a nice, fun note. So I just want you both to share something that has been bringing you joy lately.
I recently cleaned dirty grout from an old floor. That was incredible. It was like so dirty, and I scrubbed it, and now it's so sparkling
The small joys of like cleaning.
It's hashtag satisfaction, I think.
No, sometimes those, it's just like having a clean room. I know that feeling. I love organizing my shelves. I don't think it ever makes a difference, but it feels good to do it. Yeah. What about for you?
Is it bad that I'm about to say the exact same thing? I think it was 2 days ago, I went to the shop and just bought like all these different containers that all match, like they look the same and they're see-through so you can see what's inside. And I went to my pantry and put all the pasta in one, the cookies in one, like, and now it's all like color coordinated with the different stuff that you can see. It's quite like aesthetically pleasing. I just wanted to open it and just be like, yeah.
Something very satisfying about that life organization, isn't it? I also feel like at this time of year, like the start of the year, it seems to be like spring cleaning is on everyone's mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I might just see whether we have any comments or questions from the audience. Oh yeah, they're coming up now. So Anita Larkin says, this work is so not only incredible, but also so rich and generous with insight into the nuances of racism, sexism, and oppression. So powerful. Yeah.
Thank you, Anita.
Thanks, Anita.
Chris shares that shame there's not enough women that speak out about this. I wonder why. Do you think there is still a stigma about women speaking out about these things?
For sure.
Yeah?
For sure.
Mimi, do you feel the same? Like it's...
Well, it's quite difficult, isn't it? So, like, where are you going to go to? Well, you're going to go to the paper to say, hey, or, you know, like you're going to go on radio and say, oh, look at this, you know, like where are you going to go and how you, so it's definitely not enough, but definitely not enough avenues for people to safely get their stories out.
Especially when it's at a time that it's so easy to be attacked as well, because we do have things where, you know, you're talking about the the stuff with the pandemic and the racism towards Asians in Australia, and you're talking about Black Lives Matter and the racism towards Black and brown people, and it's like, you know, if we complained about anything right now, then it's almost like another one, like, you know what I mean? It's that attitude of like, oh, they're just adding, like, you know, just talking because they have the spotlight now, but it's like it's a real thing for us. But then it's kind of like on the other end, it's almost like we're complaining all the time.
That's a really difficult thing, because the policing comes from, I guess, you know, white institutions of power, but we also internalize that, and it can be so hard for, I feel like, as women of color, there is this burden that you have where that kind of social expectation that's placed on you about what's acceptable to say and not to say, which is why art is such a great I guess platform through which to sort of confront some of these issues. We have a comment from Anita again, who says, do you think we could grow a movement of political art like this in Shepparton? Wow. What do you think?
I'm ready.
No pressure. But now I think one thing that's really nice about art is that once it's made and once it's shared and once it has that audience, you don't know where it could go. You know, you don't know who could be looking at it and then thinking, oh, you know, this inspires me to do something. I think that's what's really powerful about that.
Yeah, and I love that it's online, because people can just access it wherever, and it's like kind of like, it feels like a big public platform, what it is, but it's also like the way it experiences is quite intimate, like it's often just on your phone, or, you know, so it's a good way of telling these stories, I think.
I
think it's also like interesting to see that, like, you know, when you're, I guess, let's say for example you're in your room by yourself, it's kind of like your you time, and it's when you're most, I guess, yourself, like you're not putting on front for anyone. But then imagine you see these things, and when you're in that vulnerable time to yourself, it allows you to react more organically to these things, and allows you to really internalize it more than if you were to be out, let's say, at a public gallery where you have that time between going from the gallery to home to internalizing it, and there's lots of things in between. But now you're like here, by yourself and it's in front of you on the screen, and you have that time, your privacy, to
Mm.
take it all in and really think about what it means to you, or if you relate to it or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, it does change the relationship that we have as audiences with an artwork, and it also lives on beyond the kind of confinements of a physical gallery or the time. I might just end with this comment from Rhonda, who says, great courage in writing, enjoying the conversations and representation about oneself and ourselves as women and as women of colour. Thank you and congratulations on the exhibition. More to come, I'm sure. I feel like this is a really great...
Rhonda.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thanks, Rhonda.
I feel like that's a really nice point to end on. And, you know, as someone who has been witness to both of your progress, the drafts that you wrote, you know, throughout the exhibition, it's been such a privilege to see this body of work come together. And it's so exciting to share this with an audience. So thank you, Ree and Mimi, both for your time, your generosity, your labor, and your vulnerability. You know, it's so greatly appreciated. Thank you to everyone who's joined us for our live stream. I'm very happy to say that we did not seem to have any tech issues, which is incredible. I really was like getting ready for like frozen screen. So I'm very happy that, you know, the technology was on our side. Just wanted to also end by thanking the team at MAV, who have, you know, worked very hard behind the scenes. Sneha, Anita, and Christian, who you can't see on screen, but who behind the scenes did a lot of work and support, and, you know, MAV, the organization as a whole, in supporting, you know, multicultural art and expression is so significant. So thank you for that. I also wanted to acknowledge that Submerged has, you know, been supported by the Greater Shepparton City Council. Also thank Australia Council for the Arts and Creative Victoria as well, who have both provided support for the project. I think that's it, right?
Way.
Yeah. So on the MAV website, make sure you look at the Submerged exhibition, spend some more time with Mimi and Ree's works, and I'm really excited to see what both of them are going to do next. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yay, thank you. Thanks, Sophia. Thanks, Ree.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Good night.
See ya.
Yeah.
Such a mess inside my head today. Wish the people go away. I got a message for the sun. Oh, but be too late when morning comes. Such a mess inside my head today.